You get in all right?
Yep, got here all good.
What you do? You playing a show out there?
Yeah, I'm playing here on Saturday. And I was supposed to play here on Thursday. I guess like a few weeks ago, I got swapped.
Yeah.
I had this non-refundable Airbnb. So now I'm just out here snowboarding for the week.
Hey, man,
like,
could be worse.
An extra few days, but I have to go to Vegas on Friday, which is like super annoying. Yeah. So I'll be here for like 3-4 days, and then I fly to Vegas Friday, and then I fly back to Aspen Saturday to play.
Yeah, of course.
Classic.
That's, very classic.
I'm excited to be here for a few days. Like, my crew doesn't come till Wednesday, so I'm literally just going to be like snowboarding by myself.
Oh, shit, you're just solo?
The best thing ever.
Man. How often, that's actually an interesting question, because you travel all the time, but it's always with a crew. It's always with people, right? Like, how often do you go solo anywhere?
The only ones I do solo is like show-wise, at least, is pretty much like Vegas.
Yeah. And
like occasionally I'll do like a Marquee New York or like a Live Miami or something where it's a nightclub, and there's, a lot like those ones. There's like more lights and not really a lot of visuals going on. Plus, I have the same VJ and the same LD every single show I've ever played there for like 4 or 5 years. So they got it nailed. There's like an artist liaison person who meets you at the airport and checks you into the room and does everything. So it's like you don't really need a tour manager. So I usually rip those. Otherwise, if I do anything by myself, I'm like there for a few days with the crew, and then I'm like staying extra and just like exploring on my own.
Yeah.
I do love to do.
Was it always that way for you, or did you, when you first started off, were you traveling solo a lot?
I was solo for sure. Oh, yeah, the first like full year, I feel like I was by myself, and then eventually it's like getting paid enough to bring a tour manager, and then eventually to be able to bring a VJ and then LD. And now I feel like, unless it is like a club show like that, I feel like I need to have like at least VJ, LD, tour manager, myself, and then sometimes media too. So like there's pretty much 5 of us going everywhere.
Yeah, that's wild, man. It's so funny because I've done both sides of it too. And I'm fine on my own. Like, it's not a problem to travel solo. But then once you do the higher end gigs with the whole team, and you're able to put on that kind of show and not worry about shit quite as much, it's kind of hard to go back.
It's so hard. Oh my God. It's so nice to, especially after now doing this like Dreamverse thing where we're like time coding everything and super crazy laser moments, and like everything was so cool and so impactful. And then when we go somewhere and we can't bring those ones, we brought 8 crew members because we had like a laser time coder and like a production manager and all that.
You had like a separate guy just for the lasers?
Yeah, we had, and he programs it, and then, time code like controls it and does everything. So yeah, it was like ended up being so much, but then, you just obviously can't really afford to do that every show, but I wish that we could.
Yeah, man. Well, talk about those shows a little, because those were pretty limited, right? Like you only did a few of those due to the scale of it, I'd imagine.
Yeah, pretty much. It was, we're working on another like short announced for like the springtime of basically similar to what we did, where I think we did 7 dates. For the first one. And just looking into it, for me, I just didn't feel like I had the physical energy to do a bus tour again for like a 60-date tour or whatever in the fall and like all this stuff. Yeah. And just personally, I had so much going on, and with that, the TV show was coming to an end, and just a lot of things in my life. And so I was like, I really want to do these shows, and I really want to only want to do them if they can be like extremely impactful and like kind of fit this vision that I have, which does have lasers and does have, ideally has pyro and ideally has, all these different like elements, which, you can't really do for under like freaking $100,000 or whatever it is. If you're talking about the production budgets and the labor and the crew employees and everything for the whole night.
Well, people don't understand, man. Sometimes I don't think the higher end, the crazier shows, I don't think people know how much, not just money, but lots of money too, but also, how many people have to go into it, how much planning. Yeah. It's wild.
Oh, it's like the amount of planning is insane. And for those shows too, I like because of how badass the stage was and how intense. Like, it's not shows that you make money on. Like, I spent money on all of those shows to make them happen, you know, and to make, you know, the vision come to life. But that's kind of the goal and why I like to do those Vegas gigs and some of those other gigs where, you know, it's more regular and it helps me make some money to like pay for some of those other like ridiculous like lighting setups or ridiculous stage setups. But people are always super grateful and hyped. And I feel like leaving that really lasting impression is kind of the best way to spend your money, you know?
Dude, 100%. Yeah, I think, you know, because if you think back to like shows you've seen, like when we were kids that really left an impact on you, yeah, it's like a band could play one show, and if it's the right show, I'll be a fan of theirs for life. And there's shows totally. I saw 20 years ago I still think about all the time, you know?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I feel that. I think you know, it's all about depth rather than width necessarily. You know, obviously the more is better, but realistically, it's like if you have those 1, 2, 3, 5, 10,000 or whatever, like diehard fans, like they can really support an artist. You know?
Absolutely. Yeah, man. I wish I could remember. Oh, you know what? I was listening to a podcast and Ice-T was the guest, and Ice-T was kind of talking about, they were asking about his whole career. And he was kind of breaking it down. He was talking about how now, you know, everyone has a Patreon and everyone has this sort of direct to fan thing. And he was like, I've been doing that for decades. And he started talking about Body Count, you know, his like metal band. And he was like, if you just break it down, like, you know, if you can sell 1,000 t-shirts to people for like $25 a shirt, and if you can do that twice a year, every year, he's like, that's, you know, that's more than some people make it at their desk jobs. And it's definitely enough to like sustain you just on the most basic sort of humble level. He's like, all you need is 1,000 people who will respond when you do something.
Yeah.
And it was interesting hearing him say that, because you assume with him, it's like, you know, he's a millionaire, TV shows 1,000 times.
Totally.
Over.
He's in everything ever. I mean, I'm sure you've seen the little graphic of like what $1 million is. And it's like, you know, selling a $100 item X amount of times, or $1,000 item, you know, 1,000 times, or $10,000 item 100 times, or whatever
or
it is,
like,
you know,
one Wu-Tang Clan album.
And when you break it out like that, it is interesting to think about it, like, oh, wow. It's like, not quite as, you don't need millions of people to be able to kind of like sustain yourself.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, where are you at with all of that? Because I assume at this point you have some kind of core that has followed you through your career, will continue to follow you. Do you worry about like new listeners coming in? Are you trying to please anybody? Is there any of that? I
mean, I feel like I've grown beyond the like trying to please people or doing something because I feel like it's going to elicit a reaction, or it's going to, I don't know, just for other people, basically, other than myself.
Yeah.
I feel like I've settled into not like, I don't read any comments on anything. I don't like go to Reddit and like read reviews of like anything. It's just like, because, you know, there could be 1,000 positive comments and then you see 1 or 2 negative ones and it gets in your head and like, I mean, I certainly, I think about, you know, younger generations and things like that in the way that we market things necessarily, or the way that we're like pushing things out to people and the channels that we're using and things like that. But as far as like creating the actual music, I always try to just focus on what I like and what I think is cool, and you know, hopefully people identify with it. I think I just saw something today, a video of like an old David Bowie interview where he's talking about that. He's like, generally artists produce their worst work when they're trying to do something for someone else, rather than doing it for themselves.
Well, he was the king of following your own beat, man. I mean, every album, it was an entirely new style, an entirely new sound. He changed the way he looked every album. And he put out plenty of music that was divisive and that people didn't love at the start. Probably still to this day, plenty of music that, you know, only made sense to him. But, you know, you look at the whole arc of it and it's, you know, what could be more inspirational than that?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And he'll be forever referenced as, that like torchbearer, like leading the way for people to be creative and express themselves and all of that. And he made, bangers too. A lot of bangers.
Yeah, that's true. Definitely.
How do you think you've changed, if at all, as a creative at this point in your life? Like, because you said, you're pretty good at not looking at comments. You've sort of settled into making music you want to make, the music that you like. You have that confidence. Do you think there's a big difference from like who you are as a musician from when you started to now?
I don't know if it's like a big difference, but I definitely do, definitely had to work through that. I think anyone creative, if you're sharing your creative work with people, it's just like kind of a nerve-wracking experience. And like, even if you're just playing it for their friends, like when I was first starting and making, music in my room and like playing for the kid, like, whatever, my friends on the couch, like, it would get nervous. My hands were sweaty. I was like, oh God, what is people going to think? Like, and I think it's really hard to get through that, and it took me a while for sure. But I think, things like that. I definitely did do a bit of like, oh, I'm going to work on this remix maybe because I think this guy will play it in a show or something like that. And I felt like I would kind of chase like, chase little things here and there. And it took me a few years, I think, to realize like in a couple bad like label experiences or things like that where, maybe you like disagree over something and then ends up not being what anybody likes. And then like, I was like, I can't like be doing this. I just need to like do what I like and stick with my vision. And if people don't want to fuck with it, then that's fine. And I'll just do it somewhere else or whatever.
Right. And do you think, just because I find this kind of stuff interesting, as far as like you as a producer too, do you still have the same, this is a weird question, but do you still have the same kind of fun, if you know what I mean? Like there's this old video of you I always think about. I don't know why, it always stuck in my head. It's the sort of like semi-fake documentary they made about you like super early on, like around when Street came out, and there's like a video of you like banging on a pan and sampling it. And I don't know why I always think about that, but it's sort of the picture it painted of you was of this sort of like sonic explorer, like making weird sounds in unconventional ways, that kind of thing. Like, is that still you, or do you feel like you've sort of found interesting other ways to create or other ways to have fun in the studio?
It kind of depends. I think even since then, like that was probably 8 years ago or something, like the landscape of producing music has changed so much. And the amount of like, I could now go Google like kitchen like pan snare sample set and like go get like 40 of them, where I think a little bit of the limited resources kind of forced me to like try new things. And I definitely am always trying to find something that just feels new and fresh. Obviously it's kind of, I don't know, it has become a little harder to do that. So I feel like I maybe spend a little more time doing like sample selection and searching and things like that these days, or a little bit more sound design on synths rather than sticking with the things that I was used to, or working on finding organic things around the house to sample or whatever, doing experimentational stuff. I definitely do miss a little bit of the not being as busy, and like I definitely had a lot more days where I could go to the studio and just go, what do I want to work on today? And then like, oh, I feel like making a dubstep tune, or I feel like making a house tune. And a lot of times when I get in nowadays, it's like, I got to finish this remix by Tuesday next week, and I got to finish this, and I got to bounce stems for this, and I got to do this. And it feels kind of regimented, and I have to like really manage my time well, which is kind of the hardest thing that I have to deal with. And I've like, once I started, now that NGHTMRE is kind of like, grown into where I have a tour management team, or a tour team that's 5 or 6 people, and a management team that's 3 or 4 people, and a agent and a publisher and a marketing team and like all of that. And now, there's 20 people that I deal with like on a regular every week, who are part of the team. And so I kind of go into this like CEO mode where I have to go, have this catch up meeting for merch and have this catch up meeting for this and make sure everything's organized. And so I find myself doing a lot of that, and I definitely do miss a bit of the like early days of like, yeah, just the freedom of time and having a little bit more of what do I want to do. But you know, I still do force those days, and I make sure I have days of the week where I go, cool, I'm going to the studio today. I'm not working on, like, I usually just mark studio days, and then I go in like, okay, this is what I'll get done. And then if I'm like, what I'm supposed to get done does not feel good and I'm just not feeling it, then I'll just work on whatever I want.
Yeah.
But that's always not the best strategy, because then shit just doesn't get done.
Yeah, I know what you mean though, man. And there's the thing is, I think you gotta do whatever you gotta do to make yourself have fun in the studio, right? Because if you're forcing it and it's not fun, it's not gonna be a good tune anyway. Most
100%. And yeah, I think that's part of the reason why I do love collaborating so much too, is because I learn something new every time, even if it's someone who's not on my skill level or not using Ableton or not whatever. Like, it's always something interesting that I end up learning, and kind of gives me an opportunity to maybe do something different if they make a different style of music, and just feels like a good way to kind of like inject a little bit of fun into like the creative process, and having someone to bounce ideas off with and stuff is really enjoyable for me.
Yeah, man. And so let's put a pin in this, because I want to come back and talk more about the Dreamverse project and the shows and all of that. But you just made me think of, you know, you're talking about always sort of finding a new way to learn something, to sort of put yourself back in like the beginner phase, the beginner mindset. And that makes me think about the TV show you put out, which is Sampled, is what it's called for anyone listening. It's on Paramount Plus. It's great. Go watch it. But that must have felt like, what the fuck am I doing? Like I can't even. Can you talk me through the process? Because 5 years ago, when you did this podcast the first time, you told me about the like seed of this idea.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's changed a lot since then, but like, you must have had to learn so much, not just to make it, but to get it on a streaming platform, all of that.
Yeah.
What was that process?
Yeah, it's been a crazy process. It's been super fun. You know, we had the idea, my brother originally had the idea of, you know, because of these experiences that I was having on tour, where I was in another country, experiencing some aspect of the culture or the music or the local whatever food scene that was super unique, that I would generally have never thought to do otherwise. And I wouldn't really get the opportunity even to do if I wasn't maybe an artist in the area or whatever. So we really wanted to capture kind of that unique experience that the artist gets when they're in this cool new place, and they generally have an artist liaison, especially if it's a foreign country and they're, you know, someone to help translate and show them the local restaurants and things like that. So yeah, we like didn't really know how we were going to go about it, but my brother worked in TV as like a producer. We had a bunch of friends who work in TV. Some do audio, some do camera work. So I basically flew everyone out to Tokyo on like a credit card. And when I was doing EDC Tokyo, we filmed like a 3-day, like, you know, a teaser. It only ended up being about 4 minutes of what we wanted the episode to look like. And my brother and James Winterhalter cut it together. So that took us like almost 18 months, honestly, to really get it to where we were like, this is super sick. Like the sizzle reel looks great. The deck looks great. Everything's really professional.
How long was that like that pilot, that demo, that reel?
It was only about 4 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. So it wasn't really an episode. We were kind of setting it up to be anywhere from 20 to 60 minutes, depending on like, you know, what networks wanted and things like that. So anyway, around that time, UTA had just bought Circle, which was, I was originally with Circle. I don't know if you remember, they represent all the bass guys.
I used to be booked by Circle too. Yeah.
So they all went to UTA, which was a great opportunity for me because I went to my agent and was like, hey, can you connect us with some unscripted TV agents at UTA? Because they do everything. They do TV and music.
Yeah. For anybody who doesn't know, UTA, one of the biggest like booking agencies, management companies in the country, working with musicians, filmmakers, actors, all of that.
So it was great. So we got connected with some unscripted TV agents just to kind of pick their brains and be like, okay, here's this cool show we love. Like, how do we even pitch it? Like, how do you even get in the room with like a Netflix or a Hulu and like share this with them? And their answer was basically like, the only way that you do that is by partnering with a company who already does that and like sells shows regularly. So they're like, here's 3 or 4 companies we think. We used our network and met some companies and eventually partnered with a company called 3Ball. So through them, they were essentially our network till, we signed a deal with that, like a pitching agreement with them, where if they helped us sell the show, then we'd split it 50-50 and go forth. So we spent maybe another year probably with them pitching it. It was the beginning of 2020 when it was actually like June 2020, right as nothing was happening.
Okay.
That we really got the first like bite. We had sent it to Quibi was doing like trying to make a new net platform at the time.
All right.
Netflix had looked at it. Amazon Prime had looked at it. A bunch of people had looked at it, and eventually, I think it was someone at CBS because it's like Viacom, CBS, Paramount, MTV, all subsidiaries of each other.
Right.
So someone at CBS found it, really loved it, sent it along to their upper management type people. And then, they were like super gung ho on it. We got a budget approved, everything like that. We were really hoping to shoot it in 2021. And then with COVID, as an international show, there were no dates in the US. The network was like, we can't budget millions of dollars for something that's like maybe not even going to happen if all these festivals get canceled. So then in 2022, once things were a little more open, we were able to film last summer. And then it finally, another 6 months later, it came out just this December. So it was a good almost 5 years of really like developing it and just trying to, it became one of those things where we were like, it wasn't even exciting when we got an update because we were like, this is just like still years away from being finished. But it was really cool to see that process and just be on, network TV calls and, hearing about how the process is going and how they marketed things and how it all works. And just, I don't know. It was really interesting. And to be able to, start something like that and then see it come all the way to life and be able to have like an executive producer credit on something like crazy, that is just so mind blowing to me too, because, being in those meetings and working with all those people, there are tons of people who have been working for 10, 15, like 20 years to get an executive producer credit. Like to be able to like get that opportunity and get your foot in the door that way is like really, it's just really uncommon. So I felt like it was just such a blessing for me, and to have my brother there and James, who are just incredibly talented at editing and work, they worked with the editors to really, bring it to life and just make it our vision. And, with the time that we had to finish editing and doing everything, it was like such a stressful crunch time for everybody, but it came out great.
Isn't that the way it is, man? It's like you wait for 4.5 years and then all of a sudden it's like, oh no, we need it right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, do it right now.
It was like, well, it was tough because, it's a network who has their editors that they use for everything. And so we, were out for 4 months filming this show, like it was about 8 weeks filming the show. And then, we just dump all the footage to someone who wasn't there for any of it. Right. And then they're supposed to edit it. So the back and forth of then editing it to be how we liked it, similar to our teaser and all that kind of stuff was tough. And it was like, all right, we've got 2 months. So like, this is the deadline. It's got to be done by then. And it was like, oh shit.
Well,
like,
and correct me if I'm wrong. The way it ended up is kind of each episode follows a different artist in a different place. Is that right?
Yeah.
So there's one
so
of
each
you...
episode is a different city, essentially. So, for one episode is London and Marc Rebillet is the artist. And so he has this girl, Carly Wilford, who's a local DJ and from London, born and raised. And so, she takes them around. They just do all these different things. They get Indian food from like the most renowned Indian chef who cooked for the Queen and all this amazing stuff. And they went and had this crazy underground drum and bass rave and just all this different stuff. So, and then, I did one of the episodes and I went to Monterrey, Mexico. I got the legend Americo Boombox Cartel to host me.
Shout out,
and
Americo.
we got to meet this incredible chef from Monterey, and he took us around and eat all these insane tacos. It was amazing. It was so fun.
That's great, man. And then did you guys, you and Americo, you played like some show out there as well?
Yeah, we did. Same thing. Reach out to my agent. Was like, hey, we're trying to film this episode out there. Is there anything we can do? And yeah, he found a cool. It was kind of a smaller club type vibe, but it was really cool being in Mexico like that, and in a place where, you know, I probably wouldn't have made it to Monterey if I wasn't going to go for a show, or like there's no real thing that jumps out that I'm like, I needed to go visit that in the past. But now that I've been there, I'm like, God, I got to go back. It was so sick. Like, what a beautiful place, and nice people, and like just feels like very pure culture and not a lot of tourism going on. And it was amazing. The food was unbelievable, and yeah, it was cool to see fans in a place like that. Where,
yeah, man. Yeah. Well, and I'm sure they appreciated it too, because that kind of thing doesn't happen so much there. Not to mention, America is such a great host, especially like Monterey. I feel like, you know, his whole family is around, and they got some weight in the city, and yeah, he's a great host, man.
Yeah, it was perfect.
That's great. And then who else? Just for people who haven't seen the show yet, you got Marc Rebillet. Who else was on there?
So we had Gold Link did the episode in Berlin, which was interesting because like a week before we got there, we realized that he was vegan and also did not drink. And so doing that in Germany is just like kind of funny.
As an aspiring vegan who loves Berlin, yeah, it can be kind of tough out there.
Yeah, a lot of beer and sausages. Can't have any of those.
Yeah.
And then we had Arlo Parks, a big legend. It's been killing it the last few years, did Tokyo. We had Boz, amazing rapper, part of the Dreamville camp. He did Medellin, Colombia. And then, is that everybody? What did I say? Tokyo, Medellin, 6, right? Monterey, London, Amsterdam. We had Tinashe.
Oh, even better.
Which was really cool.
That's amazing. And were all those people, how did you get people to do the show?
It was mostly through UTA. We sent the offers out. We reached out. Some of the artists were also represented by UTA, which made it kind of easy because we could just reach out into the immediate network. But yeah, I early on reached out to my agent, was like, hey, would you like to come out and kind of do a little bit of a talent buyer role for this show? And, you know, he was like, I haven't really done that, but, you know, we'll try it. Yeah. And Mark was one of the first ones that we locked in, and we were super excited about that. And then we got Tinashe, and, you know, both just
game over insane legends.
Yeah. And yeah, that got us off to a great start. And then, you know, now that we've done this season 2, I mean, we're still like kind of fingers crossed, hoping to hear back about season 2. But yeah, there's so many people who have been like, watched it and like, shit, I'll do this, like cool artists.
Oh,
and,
that's great.
Buddies of mine who I know. So I'm like, please, hopefully we'll get this, because season 2 will be I'm sure even cooler lineup of people now that we have this like established, because it was definitely kind of a weird ask. Like I definitely, you know, hit up all my random DJ friends and like bigger artists that I knew. I was like, hey, I'm doing like a TV show.
Yeah.
Would you ever be interested in possibly doing it? And kind of explaining it. I think people kind of get it. And then once they were like, oh, it's Paramount Plus, they're like, oh, that's cool. But still a first season of thing. Yeah. It's kind of weird to like pitch to people. And I think once people could watch 6 episodes and go, okay, I get what this show is about, I'm super down for it, I think certain bigger artists like might be a little more interested.
Yeah. I have trouble too. Are you this way? It's for me, I just hate asking people for shit in general.
100%. I hate it so much. But yeah, I mean, that was part of like a little bit of how a part of my role in the show, almost when we were pitching the show, was like, well, any names you can attach to the show that are notable names is going to be better than nothing. Yeah. And so I went around to like the Shaqs and like people like that who I know who are like big personalities who might, you know, a network would be interested in, and was like, can you just basically say yes, that you would potentially be interested in maybe doing this show? No commitment whatsoever, but like, I just need verbal maybe.
Yeah.
And so then we were able to kind of be like, these people might be down to do it. And we have,
that's
whatever,
smart. That's
which helped a little
smart.
bit. But yeah, I hate asking for things. And so, it's not my favorite.
How much feedback do you get as far as, I mean, I'm sure you get, people telling you they love the show and all that, but did they share like how it's doing with you? Because I know on Netflix, that's always a big complaint from creators is like, you have no idea how your show does.
We have like basically zero information. Yeah. I mean, it is kind of crazy. I think that is a question we've gotten a lot too. And like all the feedback's been good from everyone who's like watched it, and our friends, obviously it's good from them. But, we've seen a few times where like, I've seen like commercials for it on like random other TV shows that we're watching, or we've seen like, it was on the homepage for like a few weeks or whatever, things like that. And it's like a featured show. I was like, all right, well, must be doing kind of good if they're putting it up there. Or I don't know, maybe it's not doing good and they're trying to push it more. So it's like, we're just kind of waiting, like I said, with fingers crossed, hoping to hear about like the full feedback of everything. And it's been a little over a month now, so I think it should be relatively soon.
Hey,
hopefully.
man, fingers crossed. It's so cool you did that, because I don't know. It's just cool for someone from our little like DJ niche to end up kind of on a more mainstream platform, which sounds weird to say because DJing is so mainstream now.
Yeah.
But then there is still, maybe it's just like an old chip on my shoulder from the older days, but I still feel like there's kind of a separation between like the actual mainstream platforms and
100%
and what we do.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, like still like if you're walking around the airport or on a plane or whatever, in a random place, like a lot of people don't know who like Millennium is or something like that, which like kind of blows my mind. I'm like, how have you, but sometimes I feel like, I'm in the circle of like dance music, and like stepping outside of it, you like almost forget how like, it's such a small percentage of like music listeners and all that kind of, and TV watchers and all that kind of stuff. So
no, it's cool, man. Cause now I'm trying to think of like mainstream representations in TV and film, especially of DJing. I mean, it's slim to none. Like there was the Zac Efron DJ movie. There was like Diplo had the What Would Diplo Do show, which I think was on Vice or something like that. Not even like a network. Yeah. Was there anything else? I mean, there's been a couple DJ movies over the years.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, even like, our original idea was like, cool, I've got this great network of friends. We can do this with DJs. And once we kind of got to the network, it was like, we want like one DJ max.
Yeah.
Like two DJs, like give us a mixture of all kinds of artists. I was like, all right, that makes sense.
Which to be fair, that's actually probably a good call on their part, but
yeah, totally.
That's really funny. You're right. I think there's a one DJ rule in the mainstream. Yeah. I think people can know about one DJ at a time.
But it was nice to at least, get, I mean, to be that DJ and be able to kind of represent a little bit of like electronic music and be able to like say some thoughtful things about, how I feel about music and traveling and career and food and things like that. And, and be able to have it presented in just such a cool way,
Yeah, man, it's so cool. And I really hope they bring you back. And I'm sure even if they don't, worst case scenario, I'm sure you guys are going to find a way to do something cool down the line.
Totally. Yeah, for sure.
Because I know you've always loved the travel aspect, the cuisine aspect, all the tourist aspect, but you also have like a little bit of background in film and TV too, right? Like, wasn't that an interest of yours at some point early on? Or am I making that up?
Not like a ton. I mean, I definitely love film and TV. I've never really thought of myself as like being someone who's going to be involved in making it, really. But yeah, I've definitely always had a passion for food and cooking and kind of like, amazing dining experiences and cultural experiences and just traveling and kind of living a little bit of that nomad life, just like exploring and finding hidden gems and little Anthony Bourdain inspired for sure. And like Action Bronson, like, I don't know if you've seen Fuck That's Delicious, his show.
Great show.
Those two are, any Anthony Bourdain show and that Fuck That's Delicious show were two of our obviously, most most obvious inspirations for our show. But yeah, I just like really fell in love with that kind of like mentality of just exploring and being on the road and finding locals, having a drink with them, you know, asking them what makes them happy and asking them what's for dinner. And just like you find a lot of cool stories and meet a lot of cool people.
Do you have any, it's fine if nothing comes to mind, but do you have any like firsts you think of when you think of like really impactful travel experiences, or just somewhere you went really early on before you had traveled a lot that left a big impression on you?
Yeah, I mean, the one that inspired the show the most was going to South America to play Lollapalooza in Chile, in Santiago. And, you know, out of crazy, just random circumstance, one of my college roommates moved down to about an hour outside Santiago.
Nice.
Married a girl down there, like was living on a farm, like they live on a farm together, and he just like lives there full time with their family. And so I went down, you know, played the show. It was like unbelievable. And then rented this little Airbnb out in the countryside by where he lives. And we went and like lived on his farm for a few days and went down to Valparaiso, this coastal town, probably an hour and a half outside Santiago. And it was just stunningly beautiful. You know, it's a city where in like the 60s, I believe, the government subsidized, like had this huge like art revolution subsidy where they would provide money for people to paint their houses different colors and things like that. So the hill, like, you know, it's all these houses on the hill and they're all beautifully painted. There's incredible art everywhere. Like every piece of graffiti is like the best piece of graffiti you've seen in Los Angeles. Right. There's hundreds of them, you know, everywhere. And there's none that are bad. And it's like a very cool culture of like art and music. And, you know, it's right by the water. So there's fresh food and fish. And like, it was just so much organic, delicious fruits and vegetables. And just like, it was just such a cool, wholesome, fun, amazing experience. And yeah, I just left being like, man, like I need to sell everything and move down here and just move to a farm and like become a Chilean farmer and live by the beach. But
I mean, that doesn't sound too bad, to be honest with you.
It's not exactly. I was like, man, these people are so happy. They have so little. Like, there's just so many. You know, really gives you a better world perspective and like a better understanding just of everything. You know, and puts you a little bit back into your place of like, holy shit, I'm like unbelievably blessed and grateful to be where I'm at and to be able to do what I do for a living.
Yeah. Isn't it cool too? I think when you can go to a place like that and get inspired, because we talk about getting inspired all the time, but it's sort of this esoteric concept that I think is sort of hard to define. And I think people throw it around a little too much. But it, like you telling that story and like connecting the paintings on the houses to like graffiti you've seen in LA and realizing that, you know, people are kind of doing similar things in different parts of the world that, you know, maybe it's not directly influenced, but you can sort of draw these lines. Like I remember once a few years back, my girl was living in Tunisia for a year and I went and visited her out there. And Tunisia, I didn't know this till I went there, but Tunisia is where they shot a lot of the original Star Wars.
Oh, wow.
And especially like all the sand sequences, like the Jawas and the sand people and all the stuff on Tatooine and all that. And I went out there and realized, like, because in my mind, Star Wars is like, wow, in the 70s, it was so futuristic. How did they come up with these ideas? And then I went to Tunisia and I was like, oh, no, wait. They just stole everything from Tunisia. It's like literally like there weren't sets. It was just like, those are what people's houses looked like there, you know? And like all the way people dressed, even like I saw a dude who looked like he was dressed like a Jawa, which is just like the way they dressed there out in the sand. And I mean, and it really blew my mind to realize that actually it's us that are like humans inspiring ourselves. Like it's not coming from somewhere else. And it's kind of this cycle that we all just keep making stuff and then seeing stuff that somebody else made and then getting inspired to do our own version. I don't know, man. It's random.
Yeah, I totally feel that. And I'm just happy to like kind of be a part of that cycle, you know? And like, go see things, feel inspired, create something. Hopefully it's something that somebody else listens to and goes, man, this is really beautiful. This inspires me to make something, or this makes me feel like I'm in that place, or, you know.
Well, I'm speaking of inspirations. Let's go back to Dreamverse for a second, because that obviously big concept album. There's like a whole narrative arc behind it. I don't know how much you've talked about this in the past, but where that inspiration, like it's based on that idea of the hero's journey. Is that right?
Yep, exactly. Yeah.
So where does that come from? Like, do you, that's kind of like a nerdy concept for an album. Do you have like the nerd influences? Like, where did that side of it come from?
So that actually, it kind of came from when I was at Icon Collective. You know, in music school, we had a class called Art of Flow. I think we've talked about that a few times on the show. And one of the books we read was The Hero's Journey by Joseph Campbell. And so we read that story, and I think for me at the time when I first read it, I just identified with it so much. Like, and you know, the point of the story is obviously that it's kind of this story that shows up in everything. It shows up in your life and movies and whatever. That's what the hero's journey is. It's like this culmination of all religions and all, everything. So I just felt like, you know, myself being in North Carolina, and like, I felt this call to adventure and to like go do music and, you know, travel like, you know, across the country and live in California and do, you know, go to this place where I had no idea what I was doing. And, a lot of fear and anxiety leading up to it and things like that. And eventually, you know, I, accepted the call and left and went to California and did it and kind of like crossed the threshold into this unknown thing, and went through the period of, you know, being broke and having no money and working and making music every day and hustling. And then eventually, you know, having like a mentor type person that helped me get further along the way. And then eventually, you know, conquering my fears and like being in front of thousands of people on the microphone and like creating music and doing all this stuff. And I felt like I could see my own life in every step of the story. Right. And so when I got to this point now where I'm actually making my first album, and I feel like I've almost gotten to the point where I like, man, my goal is to play Ultra, my goal is to play Tomorrowland, my goal is to play EDC Vegas main stage, and all these things that I've accomplished now. And I feel like I'm, you know, you return home a better person and you start the cycle again, and you kind of, you know, it's this cyclical thing. And so I wanted to make something that felt like it represented that, but also, you know, I'm aware that like most people who are listening to dance music are very passive, and they're not going to be like diving this deep into like a crazy story of like all this stuff. So I really kind of did it for me, you know, in a way. And for the people who do want to dig deep, it's something that hopefully is pretty ambiguous, where they can identify with it, or they can enjoy the sci-fi story aspect of it, or, you know, just it helped really solidify this really cool sort of like sci-fi, like 80s dream aesthetic also that I wanted to execute. And so, I had a creative partner also for the last 2-3 years who's, really helped in solidifying exactly what that is. And he does all my graphic design and my artwork and my posters and my merchandise. And so we do all that stuff together. And I think, like I said, it was a lot of it was for me, because it's like it does go deep, and we definitely put way more thought into it than we even needed to realistically. But
that's the fun of it too, right? Though it's like, especially when you've got a friend or a collaborator, and like you said, like you put too much time and too much work and thought about too many details. That's kind of, to me, that, you know, that takes me back to just like doing fun shit with your friends. Where,
exactly.
Because back in the day, you would, you know, I don't know if you did creative stuff with your friends like before anyone was seeing it, but I think about, when I was a little kid, I would make stupid videos with my friends that were just for us. You know, no one was going to see. Maybe I'd show my parents or something, and they just kind of shrug. But, you know, it was just so fun because, we'd worry about every little aspect of it. For no reason. There was no point to it. And that's kind of why it was great.
Yeah, I think, it was great. And looking back to, part of the goal was to create also this universe in a way, like we were saying, you know, doing a little bit of world building. And now as I go to put out like another Unsound EP, there's like, you know, we have the aesthetic and we have the setting and we have a lot of these like characters and recurring people that you see in all these movie, you know, videos and things like that. So kind of, yeah, we just wanted to set that place and that setting for future Nightmare stuff and for kind of everything to exist in, you know, a little ecosystem of Dreamverse Nightmare stuff.
Yeah.
And, you know, I feel like I can make an album that's called, you know, whatever, it's The Great Wars. And then, you know, you can have an album that's set in the Dreamverse, and an Unsound thing that's an EP that's set in the Dreamverse, and everything kind of lives in the same world and in the Nightmare world, but it's not necessarily like all the same. And it's not like you have to create something completely new if you want to put out new music or, you know, a new project or something. Yeah, like man.
That. Well, I like what I like about this is, I mean, it's a big idea, and I love big ideas in general, but what it sounds like too is that you've got that what people are actually seeing is kind of like the tip of the iceberg. And then under the water, there's this whole huge, you know, like all this lore and all this stuff that only you know, and that maybe it'll be only you who knows it forever. But the fact that you spend this time kind of world building, like you said, can inform everything you're going to do. And in a way, even just for yourself, I think that's such a cool tool to have in your tool belt of just, because then if you're unsure of something, or if you don't know what direction to go with something, you can kind of look back at like, well, what would happen in this story that I'm already in the process of telling, or, you know, what fits into this world.
Yeah, I feel like it definitely helps give everything context to like what we're doing in the future. And, you know, I think even, you know, I'm going to put out like a deluxe version of this album that will have a couple extra singles and a couple extra remixes and things like that. And we're putting out a vinyl. And, you know, in the vinyl, we have like a map of the Dreamverse and all the different frequencies and like of it and all the different stages of like all that. And so I think I kind of, you know, I wanted to also express all of this lore in a way that is very consumable, which has been kind of hard to do, you know, and especially when, you know, when you're on Instagram and Reels and things and people are watching for 10 seconds and swiping on. So I tried to make it a little bit more of the show is that experience of kind of like understanding what's going on. But even then it's really hard to pass along. So we've just been kind of trying to drop little pieces and hints there. And, you know, certain people have picked up on them and kind of dug deeper. And I think having a little bit of that there where people, once they do figure out a lot of this stuff is connected and start digging deeper on their own and they figure it out, it kind of creates a special experience for those fans, those little more diehard people who are really into it. And, you know, when they find that little gem or something that connects on their own, it's like, oh shit.
Yeah,
you know, just like another fun thing.
Yeah, it's so cool, man. Did you see I'm not saying that you should do this, but it was kind of connected. Did you see when Alice in Wonderland, after her last album, I think she put out like a graphic novel that was kind of based on some of the themes. And I think she even released like an RPG, like a pen and paper, like old school RPG kind of around the theme.
I didn't even see that. I think I remember the novel type thing.
Yeah, I got mad when she did. I was like, fuck, that's a good idea.
Yeah, that is really dope. I mean, we've talked about it for sure. We definitely like the idea of doing some type of graphic little like comic or something like that. But still, that would be post deluxe album.
No, of course, man. I mean, we're talking about all these 8 million things you're doing, man, and it's it's a lot. Does it feel overwhelming, or do you like to kind of be in the whirlwind of it?
You know, it's like it's a love-hate thing. I feel like sometimes I definitely do feel overwhelmed with it a lot of times, and that's, you know, one of my goals for 2023 too, is definitely like that, like simplifying things a bit more in terms of like the communication within my team and like, just like doing that many shows, like doing fewer shows, more selective about the ones that I'm doing. Yeah. And, you know, even beyond like TV and music, I have like real estate projects and like a bunch of other like random developments and things that I like work on. So I'm trying to wrap up some of those and and yeah, simplify my life a bit, because I think definitely last year, especially the back 6 months of 2022, I felt like I had like every project that I had started in the previous 3 years, all finishing at the same time.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I was starting to feel a little burnt out, and just like, the weekends, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I'm on tour doing shows, and then I get back Monday, and the whole team's like, all right, it's Monday morning. Here's the bajillion emails and things we got to do. And then it just became, there was no days ever that I was not doing work.
Yeah.
Because, I'd be Monday through Thursday. Okay. Monday, I'm doing all my meetings. Tuesday, I'm in the studio. Wednesday, I'm like doing actual life shit, fucking moving into an apartment or getting, whatever, going to dinner with my girlfriend or whatever it is. Yeah. And then, Thursday comes along and I've got one day like, shit, I need to work on music, or, there's still a million things I need to do. And then Friday at 6 a.m., I'm back at the airport. And like, it just became this never ending loop of like, oh, and it's hard sometimes, because you book stuff so far in advance. Like, I'm booking things for August and September right now, for this year. So it's like, it can be a little hard to say no sometimes, just because I love what I do and I love traveling and I love being on the road. But then, I gotta like force myself to like make the time to like handle some of these business things personally, because, if you want to execute your vision, sometimes you got to do it yourself.
Yeah, dude. Amen. I mean, the idea, the team I work with has never gotten to the size of the team you're currently working with. But even just on my level of, get everyone on the same page, get everyone to like, as close as possible, understand what's in your brain. And because no one can see that, no matter how much you talk to all that. I mean, it drives me crazy. I can only imagine at a bigger scale.
Yeah. And 100%. I mean, like you said, trying to get everyone on the same page with communication, and just like, with social media and stuff too. I've, for years I ran into just like, okay, let me try and find someone who can help manage my social media. And like, it's just impossible to teach someone to be you. Yeah. You just can't do it no matter what. Like, even if they write a million, they read 10,000 of your captions, it's like, there's nothing will ever sound like your voice necessarily unless it's you. So, I've definitely given up on like, not given up, but I've realized that I have to do that stuff myself. And like, I have to be the one engaging with fans and like, doing some of these little things that, maybe aren't my favorite thing to do, sit on Instagram and craft a post for an hour every single day, but it's kind of part of the deal. You know what I mean? I just need to be the one doing it, so that if I want it done the way I wanted to see it done, then I have to do it.
Yeah.
And so, it goes that way with everything. And
well, and that's a good note, I think, for up and comers too, because I think when you're just starting off and there's no one to help you, it's you wish you had all these people to help you do all these things. But then I think you always got to keep in mind that, even when you have those people, it doesn't sort of solve the problem the way it seems like it will when you're just starting off.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, And it's like you said, you end up coming back to wanting to do it all yourself, because like you want it done that way. And it's tough to navigate. But, even when I've talked to my friends who work with, people on like, I have a friend who works for Kid Leroy and like on that level, and huge Rock Nation artists and things like that, or, everywhere in between. It's like everybody's kind of dealing with similar stuff. It's like, oh, well, this person approved this thing and thought it was approved by this guy, and he talked to them, but they didn't talk to this guy. And like, it's just like this crazy trying to coordinate so much communication and just make sure everyone's on the same page and execute like what the artist wants.
You're running a business, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, it feels like it, honestly. Become a CEO in these last couple of years.
Well, and I mean, there's so much more shit too that we haven't even talked about. I mean, you've got the label with you and Slander, and you're putting out a bunch of music all the time, not like your own, but also from a bunch of other artists.
Yeah, I feel really grateful for Derek and Scott with the Slander guys too, because Derek is that way to even more of an extreme of me, where he's like, this is my vision, this is what we're doing. And like, no matter what the fuck anyone says, does not matter. He does it. And I have so much respect for him for that. And like, and just having that specific of a vision, like for me, a lot of times I was like, I don't even know like fuck, I'm too indecisive to like just say I want it exactly this way. Sometimes I'm like, I don't know. But yeah, Derek does a really good job of taking the lead on a lot of Good Vibrations label stuff. And he's, like I said, sometimes very specific about like his vision for like how how the label's perceived and what artists and sound and everything like that. So I'm always there to like approve and disapprove or send things over to him if I like them or whatever. But really grateful because he like definitely helps with the workload of that a lot. And it's really, really awesome. I feel really grateful to be a part of that, of the label process and, being able to find artists who we really love and we think deserve more attention and try and, get them into the limelight a little more.
Yeah, man. And just having, since you guys kind of started off together and you've grown together and you've all, gone places, done a lot of crazy stuff, it's got to be nice to be able to sort of check back in, not only because you know where you both started, but you're also kind of, you stayed connected,
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's not a ton of like relationships like that in the industry. And I'm just as happy to be working with those guys as I was on day one. And yeah, it's really crazy to kind of look back and see where we're at and where they're at now too. I mean, those guys are on a crazy roll the last couple of years and just did a 20,000 person LA show for over 2 nights. And just, it's really unbelievable. And the industry as a whole too, there was nobody doing 20,000 person dance music shows, like unless it was a festival.
Yeah. And more people are starting now. I mean, somebody like Subtronics just announced a like arena tour.
Yeah, I just went. I was out at his Vegas show because I was playing a Vegas gig at Omnia, and he was playing there. And outside downtown, it's like 4,000 or 5,000 people, just crazy, beautiful, like amazing. His stage production's good.
So sick.
Yeah, I mean, another dude who just could not possibly deserve it more. Jesse's the nicest. Like he's always great. Like. Anytime I've ever reached out, I feel like he's even more busy than me and he responds right away and he's always super nice. I love that dude. Very grateful for our song that we got to do together as well.
Yeah, that's a great tune, man. And it makes me think too, just because I was thinking about this for myself the other day. I talked to an old friend who I hadn't talked to in a long time. And at the end of the conversation, we were both, it's like one of those where you're like, we really got to like stay in touch more. I'm sorry, I'm so bad at keeping in touch with you, that kind of thing. Is there anyone, or I'm sure there are, the question should be, who in your life do you stay in touch with? Like maybe even outside of music, could be somebody in music too, but is there somebody you or multiple people you talk to, check in with on like a weekly, every other week kind of basis?
Yeah, I mean, it's mostly my family, honestly. I mean, it's mostly my immediate family that I hang out with. I'd say there's probably a half a dozen real close friends who went to Icon with me, who are some of my best friends in LA. There's probably, I've got like a group text of 5 or 6 college buddies who we always stay in touch. And then, I would say generally, other than my team and the work people that I'm always with, the people that I keep up with like very, very regularly is pretty much that. It's like family, really close friends in LA and a few really close friends from college. And otherwise, I definitely try to make an effort of, especially my artist friends, anybody who I haven't heard with in a while or whatever, trying to text, just make sure everybody's good. And because I know it's really easy to, when you're not feeling good, not want to be on social media, not want to do anything. And then like, sometimes, if you're not posting, not doing anything, like, I don't know, it's just like, fewer people are going to see you and fewer people are going to whatever. And it's like, it can be really easy to just like lose touch with someone who you don't want to, but just like with the craziness and everything. And I think, I have a ton, like beyond that layer of like 20 to 25 people or whatever that I talk to every week, there's like 250 people who I would consider who are my friends, who I would text at any time. But I just like, it's probably literally hundreds of people that I'm like, I would consider my friends and I would love to have a catch up conversation at any time. But yeah, a lot of times I'm like, it just, I don't know. If I catch the Facebook birthday notification, I'll call them and then we'll catch up. And I'm like, oh, fuck, I'm glad we did that.
Yeah. Well, in a way too, like, because I feel similarly, hundreds of people easily that I never talk to, but I would tell you they're my good friend, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which is so silly. And I guess that in a way it's kind of sad, but in another way, I think there's something nice about the community aspect of what we do. Like talking about, how like DJs going to mainstream so rarely happens. I think there is sort of that shared camaraderie, that shared chip on the shoulder to a certain extent of just like, yeah, we're all doing this weird thing and kind of only we know what it's like. And I have a baseline level of respect for anyone doing it. And I'll I'll talk to anyone who's doing it, at least for a little bit, just off the strength of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. I think, fortunately, most people that I run across in dance music as well are just generally nice people.
Yeah.
Like there's so many cool, accepting, loving, great people in dance music. And I think the percentage is significantly higher than most other industries. The people who are there to do something fun and have a good time and make something cool and not to make money or like profit off somebody else or like get to the top or whatever, which feels good. And yeah, I think, especially like a lot of my DJ friends, like I do end up seeing them once or twice or three times a year, just randomly running into each other on the road. So we don't always catch up as much, but yeah, when we're on the road, it's like, yeah, we just have that, like, I know what you're going through right now. It's like, where are you going to tomorrow? Where'd you just come from? Like, do you get a few days at home with your family soon? And like, how's your mental health and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And just making sure, even though it's 5 minutes on the road, like, I feel like I definitely am a little bit better nowadays at being like, oh, well, I'm okay, but this isn't great or whatever. And being real about it rather than just being like, yeah, that's good. Like most people would generally do. So. Yeah. And I feel, it's nice to be able to feel like you can be like, I'm not doing great. And, people are like, oh shit, like, what can I do to help? Or,
absolutely, man. Yeah, I think we got to normalize that too. Because it's like we're all doing great for the hour we're on stage, but otherwise, no one.
That's definitely the peak.
Yeah. It's tough. I mean, for you, man, like you were just home for a couple days. You had to move in those days. Now you're back out. Oh, yeah. You get a couple days to hang out and snowboard. We've sort of touched on this already, but like outside of sort of managing your time and making sure you set aside some relaxation and don't overload yourself, are there tools you've sort of picked up along the way to, either like things you do outside of music or just practices that keep you in a good mental state to be able to, keep all these balls in the air?
Honestly, it's mostly like hiking. Like, I feel like I've maybe said that once or twice on the show, but it is like purely my time that I feel like I can meditate. I don't ever listen to music. I just like, it's like, I hate fucking going to the gym and lifting weights. I'd much rather be outside, just like getting cardio, like running up a mountain. And, I feel like I know a ton of the trails really well in LA now and a bunch of the, cool places to just go be outside and enjoy some fresh air. And especially with how much I'm on planes and hotels and cars and just everywhere inside and like screens and just all of it. My best mental reset is always, just being outside and hiking and being by the ocean, whether it's the beach or, that's why, I really do enjoy being in LA because I can go out to Malibu or Santa Monica mountain range and do some hikes that are, just quiet and refreshing and be back home in 20 minutes.
Am I crazy or did you post at some point like a longer hike you did? Like, did you hike some trail for like a week, something like that?
I haven't done like a week. I've done a couple where I've done like 2 nights, backpacking where I'll, you bring everything. I do love that. I've done overnight backpacks a good bit. So, I'm in Aspen now, like back in, I guess, 3 months ago, October, I was here and I did a backpacking trip here where, we climb, you climb up like, I don't know what it was, like 2,500 feet and like, which fucking with altitude and like a big ass bag is not easy. Yeah. It was like 4 or 5 miles and eventually, yeah, it was super fun. I mean, I really love that. And it's just pure, like the most disconnected you can be. There's no cell service, even if you wanted it. And like just pure silence, like maybe a few animals chirping, and like perfect, tranquil, beautiful lake and mountains and snow. And I really love like the idea of just being able to like, just you have your backpack, that's it. You got everything in there, and you're on your own for a little bit. And I love kind of having those moments of being by myself. I feel like I'm very much an introvert who has like an extrovert's job. And so like for me to recharge, a lot of times like being by myself is like ideal, which is like why right now even I was like, man, like I'm going to go snowboarding all day by myself, just dead silence. I can't wait to do it. Like it's going to be perfect. I think like another part of my personality is just always wanting to do stuff. So even when I'm home, like as soon as I'm home, I'm like, okay, like what should I do? I need to go do something. Like, even if it's my time off, I usually am doing something, but it ends up being something by myself. And I like enjoy that time a lot.
Of course, man. Yeah. I mean, we've talked about this, but that's the thing you and I share is the introvert with an extrovert's job. And it's a weird thing because I do need both sides, and hearing you talk about what it does for you when you're just out hiking somewhere, silence by yourself. I very much relate because it made me think about the Chilean farmer we were talking about earlier, where it's like
exactly.
you kind of need both sides, because it's like if you just went and you were a Chilean farmer, eventually you'd probably miss the other part 100%. Of it. But then at a certain point, like, eventually we'll be old men, and, maybe then you can go actually be the Chilean farmer, and it's, it's something you already love, and it's something maybe to look forward to in a way. And then it kind of makes you more thankful for what you're doing now in our better moments.
Absolutely. No, for sure. I think that my retiring on a farm days are a little ways away behind me, but I look forward to them for sure. But I definitely feel a bit of this, like, fucking just, I feel like I have to seize the day in a way sometimes when I'm like, man, there's so many people who would just die to have the job that I have and be in a position that I have. And sometimes that is my number one motivator of being like, I need to go out and experience this, or I need to go do this. And, I need to go play the show, and I want to go, take every opportunity that I can get to just do things, because I feel like a lot of people just don't get that opportunity. And, I have my health and everything like that right now, which is never guaranteed. And, it's like everybody who is healthy wants a million things, and everybody who's sick wants one thing.
Ooh, I like that. That's a great way to put it, man. That's right.
I'm glad that I have my health, and I'm trying to just like see as much of the world and do as many things as possible right now, so that, no matter what happens in the future, if I do want to be retired or whatever, I can, enjoy.
Yeah, dude, 100%. And I mean, to bring it all the way back around, we were talking about the idea of the hero's journey that went into the last album and all that. And you were kind of saying that you felt like you could start that cycle again right now.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you, like, is that kind of where you're at in your career mentally right now? Like, do you feel like kind of one chapter is ending and a new one is starting? Is there like some new stuff to conquer on the horizon?
A little bit. I almost feel like the after, like post COVID was kind of the beginning of a chapter in a way. Like feels like this Dreamverse album and doing this is kind of like been the beginning of a new chapter. And I felt like maybe not necessarily like this upcoming year, but I feel like I'm kind of in the middle of this Dreamverse chapter and album, and like really like focusing on myself and my own vision and what I really love, and honing in on that and really defining like what the Nightmare sound is and what the Nightmare brand is and the colors and just everything to be really specific and figuring out exactly what it is that I like and that I want Nightmare to represent and all that kind of stuff. And so I feel like I'm in that chapter right now.
Yeah, that's good, man. That's good. That's a fun place to be when you have ideas, but you don't know what it's going to look like yet. I like that potential, because then it's like it could be anything. It's like it's a little nerve-wracking, but it's also fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I'm excited for this year. I think I have a lot of like, I don't know. It feels nice to have this album out now. I feel like I do have a little bit more of that, like, oh, what do I want to do now? And I've done like, the last 3-4 months, I've done like 3 or 4 just like really fun remixes that I just wanted to do. I did a remix for Peekaboo that I'm really stoked about. I did a remix for that new Subfocus Dimension song, and like did a remix with Crank that I've been wanting to do for a long time. Just a bunch of random like stuff that is purely for me. That's super fun. That I know the fans are also going to really be excited about.
That's great.
So yeah, I'm really stoked for that.
Nice, man. Do you think, not that you're going to do this right away, but having done the whole album, big concept album, big show production, would you do that again? Would you do it in a different way?
I think so. I think I would do it in a different way probably next time. I mean, I think, like I said, I was kind of establishing this Dreamverse album. My goal next is to kind of do another Unsound EP, essentially. And, I had the first one last year. Actually, it was almost a year ago today that it came out. And I had 4 collaborations, with all sort of up and coming artists. At the time, especially, Ray's absolutely crushing it right now.
Shout out to Ray
awesome.
Volpe, man. Yeah.
Shout out Ray Volpe. Which I remember I was just talking to him about this the other day. It was like when we finished that song about a year and change ago, we were in the studio and he was like, yeah, I've never played a festival before. And I was like, what? You've never played a festival? Like, I've been playing your music for like 5 years. That's crazy. And then Laserbeam came out like 4 months later, and he's just, I'm so happy for that dude.
He's like such a good dude. And it's crazy because he's been on the podcast twice now. And it once was many years ago, kind of right when we first started. And then more recently, like after Laserbeam came out and he kind of went crazy. And even just talking to him with like those few years in between, it was like it was like, honestly, and I told him this to his face, I meant it as a compliment. He grew up. Like I felt like I felt like the Ray I used to know was like a little kid. He was awesome, but it was just like he was a kid. And now I felt like talking to him, I was like, wow, this is like almost a whole new person. It's crazy.
Yeah. No, it's definitely in a good way. Like you said, he's matured a bunch, and I'm really stoked.
He's
for
the
him.
best, man. Yeah.
I don't remember where that.
Oh, you were talking about Unsound and.
Unsound. I wanted to do another Unsound EP this year, and because I have another 6-7 collaborations with some other guys who are like, maybe not as huge artists that I really love, and they feel like not necessarily like. Feels more like an EP. Yeah, it's like a little bit of a bunch of different things that all fit together, but not necessarily like a story or anything. But it's like just really fun music and festival kind of vibe stuff. So I really want to put that out. I've got this remix album working of all the Dreamverse remixes and all that kind of stuff too. So my goal is to do something that for the next Unsound EP to even make it like, 7, maybe 8 tracks or something like that. Almost not like full album length, but pretty sizable amount of music to release. And just kind of, I don't know, we're scheming fall tour right now. I'm thinking of doing something fun and different, like a cool, like B2B tour with a bunch of friends or something like that.
That would be really cool, man. Yeah, you're in a fun place, man. Cause it's like you've executed these big projects and now it's like, all right, let's have some fun.
Yeah. I feel like, I'm excited to do, like I said, we're going to do another 6 or so Dreamverse dates. To some of those markets we didn't get to go to, like Atlanta and Orlando and some of these still big places where I have a lot of fans, but we just didn't really just didn't work out for whatever reason, one or the other, radius.
Yep.
Woes. Or
radius clause, another thing that, I don't think anyone knows about, but it's like rules where DJs can play.
Yeah, I was going to say, whenever I have to explain that to people all the
time. Well, I mean, it's great to like talk to you, man, to get the updates on all this. Anything else going on? Like you just moved into a new place. Are you like life-wise, can you separate life and work anymore? Is it all the same thing?
Yeah. Honestly, it's been really hard to, for sure. I've been like, this has been a huge transition period time for me too. I was like, in a relationship for a really long time and am no longer in a relationship. So I've been like spending a bit more time, even more time on work, which has felt good, in a way. And I feel like I've been able to give myself a few more of those days. in the studio where I'm really just having fun and like kind of following my creative inspiration. When I love doing what I do so much, it's really hard to not bring it home with me sometimes. And I think that's okay. You know, that's part of what it is.
As long as you still love it, the fact that you still love it even, I think means that you've figured something out along the way. Because I think a lot of people on your level who do the amount of things you do, they can do it and they can do it well and be a great artist. But I don't think everybody enjoys it or still loves it that same way. You know?
I can see there's definitely plenty of aspects of my job that I do not enjoy. And, and fortunately, I feel like because I did go through business school and got a finance degree and like did learn a lot of these like marketing strategies and just whatever, like I feel like that helped me a lot, like being in this position where I am now and like really understanding how like my financial statements work and like running them, the merchandise is its whole company on its own and like just understanding how that process goes. And I think having those business skills has really helped me like elevate myself. Whereas, I think there's certain artists, who maybe have insane levels of talent, but just refuse to do that kind of stuff. And, it's, it can show. And the other way around, people who maybe, aren't quite as like just born crazy, naturally talented, but they hustle and they brand their shit well and they do everything and they posting content every 2 days and it's like and that elevates you to another level too. Just trying to find that balance of those.
That's good, man. And it's still, I like that you're still figuring it out too. Like that's fun too. Like it doesn't,
I will be forever.
Yeah, dude, that's great. Because then it talking to you, it doesn't feel like you're just sort of going through the motions or running the machine. It's like, no, we're still making adjustments everywhere. You're still talking about doing every little bit of it. You're on your own when you can,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely making adjustments every day and adding new things to the show, trying to keep it fresh and interesting. Yeah.
Well, it's great to talk to you, dude. Is there anything else on your mind? Anything else I didn't ask you? Anything else going on?
Not really. I think we talked almost everything. TV, music, stoked for these remixes to come out soon.
Hell yeah.
Stoked to be doing some international shows again this year. I feel like that's opening back up again.
That's good, man. Yeah. I mean, and that's, to take it back to the travel part too. It's like, that's one of the coolest things we get to do, and it's nice for that to feel new again.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I don't know when this airs, but
I think we're putting it out tomorrow.
Okay, cool. Shit, I won't say anything. I was like, I got a really fun show in March, but can't.
Yeah. No, it's all good. We'll make another post when you announce that.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Well, dude, it's great to see you, man. I mean, going back to what we were saying, I consider you a good friend who I never talked to, and
I know, man. I was like, fuck. There was not too long ago when we were both in LA, and same thing. We were trying to get dinner, and just classic.
That's the way it goes, man. We'll make it happen at some point. But even the times we're not, man, I think about you often. I love you. It's great to talk to you, man.
Yeah, I'm same. Absolutely. I really appreciate you. Always love coming on the show, and just very grateful for the amount of just the thought and time and effort you put into this, because I feel like there's not really a lot of outlets that I actually get to do this and really talk about everything that's going on in my life. Most interviews it's like, where'd you get the name Nightmare, and then a couple quick questions, who's your dream collaborator, and that's it.
So, well, it means a lot, man. It really does mean a lot, and I feel grateful that you come on and do it, man. I couldn't do it without you either. So thank you.
Well, I'm happy to come back anytime, brother.
Absolutely, man. Well, I'll let you get to your solo time and your skiing, your snowboard and all that. All right, man. I'll talk to you soon. I appreciate you. Take care, buddy.
All right, later, dude.
Peace, man.
Bye.
Bye.